Hello everyone, so this is gonna be a more casual, simple version of a Sinner review since Deren basically plays about the same, so I just wanted to go over a couple of numbers and a bit about her Reforge since it's finally out on the global server. Sorry it took a hot second, I haven't been really well for the past couple of weeks, I have just been busy. But yeah, so let's just go for it. As you can see, I have an S5 Deren fully reforged, and this does kind of matter with RF Deren, and I'll explain why. So overall, if you want a generic Reforge setup that you can use in basically any map, you can just kind of copy this. You can go to sin.gg, it's written down in the text format as well, but here you go, here's what I'm using. For her RF node, it's a little tricky sometimes to maintain Ethy's, so even though Ethy's node is quite good, because Deren does do skill damage and it is unique for Deren as a buff type. However, because it is like 3 seconds and you need to consistently stack it, you may not be able to have strong uptime on this, so you can just use Deren's own one. It's not bad. You could also use Serpent's one, but don't know why you would do that when the number of this is higher, unless you want it in Dark Zone or something. But Deren's damage is so high now with the Reforge, you probably don't need it. Now onto the Reforge nodes and kind of like the logic of why you pick these. So this one's really useful because it helps you weave with your new ECB. So the way you want to play it now is that when you choose this one, this is the better, higher damage output one. So every time you use an ultimate, your next ECB deals more damage. After you use the ECB, the next ultimate deals more damage. So if you combine that and this one, then you use your ECB, you get a charge, and then you can weave them back and forth very seamlessly. So that's why we picked this. And is, just more ult charges, more damage. The other option here is the One Punch Woman ECB, where the damage value of the ECB is increased to 5 times of the original value, but you can only use it once. So overall, this is actually a damage loss compared to picking this one, but it's just really funny. So nothing wrong with using this. It does a lot of damage if you need a one-hit thing, such as in Data Crevice. So that's an option, but overall, this will deal more damage. So we pick this as the generic set. Now if we go back to the beginning, here we pick a crit rate increase, and that is because of another node here, this one. For every 1% increase in Deren's crit rate, crit damage is increased by 1.5% up to 300%. So basically you can have 200% crit rate times 1.5 is 300. So Shackles Sync now increases crit rate by 16%. This is why Shackles were kind of important, which means this one and this one are no longer 8%, but now 16%. So if you do the math and stuff with how her skills work, you go here to see fast motion. For each stack of Interfere, Mark Deren carries, her crit rate increases by 10% and crit damage increases by 14%. So remember this one, crit rate 10% here for each stack. So originally, you can have 3 stacks of Interfere, special mark that can stack up to 3 times, right? And here with your S1, your maximum stack limit increases by 1. And additionally, in your Reforge, you have this node now. The maximum stacks of Interfere and Shackle's Long Take are increased by 1. So you can have a total of 5 Interfere marks if you have S1 now, and you can have 4 if you don't have S1. So you can get 50% or 40% crit rate by default once you max out your Interfere stacks. And then let's say you have S0 only. With this, you get 47.5% crit rate. Then, normally in this team, you'll play with Yelena, so that's 10% from her, which is 57.5% crit rate. If you have S5 and you add on the extra 32%, because 16, 16, 32, you add that on, it is basically 89.5% that Deren has on her own. And then with Yelena, it's basically 99.5%. So it's nearly a guaranteed crit with Yelena if you have everything maxed out on RF Deren. So I think they probably intentionally did it this way. So they wanted to push Deren to basically be 100% crit rate at max Shackles. What this means is just that, you get more crit damage with higher Shackles. But again, Deren does just do a lot of damage now. So even if you don't have high Shackles, I wouldn't worry. If you do want to pull, I would probably just aim for S1 to get the extra Interfere stack, since that is a pretty decent gain now. And it allows you to have 1 stack when you enter the battle. The reason why we usually want this is because otherwise you have to get 2 stacks of interfere marks before you can start doing the core break ult. So the normal ult just chucks something at a tile and Deren doesn't move. You actually need 2 stacks of interfere to start doing the one that moves Deren and does a core break. So you kind of do have to wait for a while, you have to do quite a few basic attacks, use quite a few ults. It can be pretty annoying in some Dark Zone stages. And for a long take, you know, it increases 1 as well from just now, so it becomes 15% damage increase for all allies instead of 12%. I wanted to call this very important because like allied center damage dealt is pretty diluted overall. As for the shackles for the crit rate, I wouldn't super worry because a lot of times you would probably take Yuigu or something, or maybe RF Ovo in the future for extra crit rate. So you wouldn't make up that difference from like 57.5% with like 30% around from Yuigu, be like 87%, or like with Ovo. Ovo is like 35 or 40% crit rate, something crazy like that. So you would get really high crit rate anyway. I wouldn't worry about it. So basically, if you already have S5 Deren, I guess congratulations. But if you don't, I wouldn't sweat it. Maybe just get S1. So that's kind of the logic for the ones we picked here. And the reason we picked physical damage dealt and skill damage dealt is because these multipliers are a little more uncommon. Skill damage increase is a bit more common. You get it with like Yuigu, you get it with like LL. But because attack buff tends to be quite diluted, you know, with Zichuan, Shin, and then if you're shield stacking, even more so. So we just kind of don't take this, you know, whatever. Attack speed doesn't really help that much in this team, so don't really bother with that. And crit damage is really diluted because you get so much of it. So ultimately, we just pick skill damage. And here, we will always take Observer effect because it increases the bonuses from per interfere stacks and so on. And if your ultimate or ECB only hits one enemy, the damage dealt is increased by 50%. So this is just really nice. You will always take this in RF Deren. So that's the logic for more or less how you pick her nodes. Again, if you just need a one punch stage to be cleared or something, just swap these two. You keep the rest the same. So the way you play Deren now is basically you give her Bell Tower in Dark Zone, you give her this one. I'm not going to because I have high shackles. And then you just turn on everyone's buff and profit. So this is kind of like a scuff way of doing it. See, turn on everyone's buff, and then go and start hitting the boss. So you see I'm weaving one ult, one ECB, one ult, one ECB. And then when I've run out of them, I just, you know, use my normal ults. And then the boss will probably die. But again, this is with, I have S5, but this is with no crime brands. Having your crime brands will increase the buff like by 50%. You know, so just, and then her basic attacks deal so much damage now, you can just kind of like, just hit them with basic attacks, you know, ult maybe an elite if it's not dying. And then just, yeah, just, you know, go for it. Of course, you can just do like the normal kill mobs and then hit them when the boss goes, cold break, that kind of thing, but as you can see, it's very unnecessary now. You can just delete the boss without thinking about a course. Just for fun, we can do a round where my maxed out Deren and team puts on Bell Tower, and then you can see how nonsense this is. I'm actually turn that. I'm gonna be going us. Start alternating hits, as you can see. And the boss is just gone. You know? It's just, yeah, you just move her around, hit mobs with basic attacks. They'll probably die. You know, that's just the way it is. Kind of annoying sometimes if they're like out of range, but you know. And yeah, just go for it. Yeah. And there you go. So aside from the like
此战您的表现
weaving back and forth
多谢诸
of your
位，
skills,
手下
not
留
much
情。
skill required, really. Just maybe turn your speed down a little on the game, half speed, pop everyone's buffs, and just go bang, 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 and everything should die. But yeah, I think just having the build is probably going to help you guys a lot. So just follow that. It should be all good. If you have any other questions about RF Deren, you can just comment and I will try my best to answer. I'm going to stop the recording here and move on to RF Yao next. Bye bye!